Hey, what's up, Spartan Nation? Welcome to another episode of the Spartan Nation Podcast. Here with your host, Matt Lonsberry, and my co-host, Aiden McCrone. Another week and another preview podcast for Michigan State football. Thanks for joining us, those who have. Hopefully a few more will trickle in here as we get going. Pretty much the same usual format tonight as we've done in previous weeks, where we'll break down Michigan State's matchup against Nebraska this week, and we'll also mix in some Big Ten football talk with some of the matchups this week, and then of course our best games of the week that we'll do towards the end, where we make picks against the spread for some of the best games in all of college football this weekend. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. Aiden, I got to be honest, I've been a little bit unplugged today outside of this morning because I've been cleaning the apartment and all that stuff. So has any breaking news happened? Because it does seem like there's some kind of breaking news every day. So has anything happened in the last couple hours that I might have missed? Because I haven't been on Twitter at all.
Well, Bob Knight just died. So there's not. Yeah. So I guess that's that counts as breaking news. That doesn't,
it
not
does.
Really towards MSU, but
yeah,
that is
news, though.
That is news in the college basketball and just the basketball community.
Wow.
But I can't think of anything MSU that we haven't already seen in terms of, the sign stealing of, the Central Michigan game, and then kind of the rumors of Urban Meyer potentially having a $100 million contract set up. But yeah, nothing too crazy in the land of East Lansing right now. Besides that,
I had not heard about Bobby Knight before going live here with you. So that's that is. I mean, that counts as significant news. Like you said, Big Ten news, college basketball news. Obviously, one of the coaching legends of this conference. And I think when Tom Izzo became the Big Ten's all-time winningest coach, he passed Bob Knight to get there, did he not?
Yeah, I believe he did.
Yeah, I think he did. So, all right. Well, rest in peace to Bob Knight. Definitely a polarizing figure. There's no doubt about that. But no doubt also one of the best college basketball coaches of all time. So we feel for our Indiana brethren today. With that. And then, of course, it does seem like there's some kind of new, I don't want to say development, because development is not the right word when it comes to Urban Meyer and Michigan State, but a new rumor or a new reason why he's going to be coming to Michigan State, or a reason not to, seemingly every day. That'll be for a different show. But with that, I think we'll just kind of get started here with our breakdown of Michigan State and Nebraska. Before we do that, though, just looking at the comments section here, keys to wisdom. Yeah, stop betting your money on Michigan State, man. Like you work hard for that, and keep that to yourself now. But we appreciate you tuning in again to our show, and also tuning into Michigan State this weekend because of course me and Aiden will as well. So
right.
But yeah, stop spending your money on this football team. So. Gregory asked, what's the record for the most consecutive losses for a Spartan football team? Any chance we can do this? It's got to be way more than 6 because they've had seasons in the past where, you only win 1 or 2 games. So I'm sure it's longer than 6. I don't know the answer to this question. It would be fun for somebody to dig that up maybe while we're doing the podcast. But that's not a very exciting way to start off the podcast here, Gregory. So, but we do appreciate the comments. So, if somebody wants to look that up, we'll talk about it. So, all right, with that, let's get started with our preview of Michigan State and Nebraska. This is the 13th all-time meeting between the two programs. Not very many meetings. Nebraska leads the series 9-3 all time. All 3 of Michigan State's wins in this series have come since Nebraska joined the Big Ten back in 2011. Michigan State is 3-4 against the Cornhuskers since that time. Last meeting was in 2021, 23-20 win for Michigan State. I think that was the game where Jaden Reed took the punt return back to give the Spartans the lead and ultimately the win. So that was the last meeting. And as far as this year's meeting, Nebraska is currently favored by 3 points. I think they opened around a 2-point favorite, and that's climbed to 3. And another low-scoring game is expected. The over/under being set at 34.5, which is way down there. So, initial thoughts about this matchup, Aiden, and without giving too much away, where are your leanings and what do you expect to see, I guess, on Saturday?
Yeah, well, I know you before the season were kind of high that, or like, I guess you were kind of optimistic that MSU would beat Minnesota, and that was part of one of your preseason predictions. And one of mine was that MSU would beat Nebraska, and we still kind of, as the chaos kind of endured for MSU, I still felt like this was a winnable game for them, but Nebraska has really come on pretty strong as the season has gone on. They're now bowl eligible. So, they're 5-3. So they're fighting. This game would give them bowl eligibility. And Matt Rule has really you can already see him turning that program around a little bit, because this would be their first bowl game in, I believe, 5 or 6 years. I don't think they made a bowl under Scott Frost. So
that's
that
crazy,
would be,
but I think you're right.
Yeah. So that would be huge for them. And he's really turned that program around, and MSU has kind of, deteriorated, more and more as the weeks go on.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think you're right. Nebraska seemed to have maybe found itself a little bit over these last couple of weeks and trending in the right direction. And unfortunately, we just can't say that about Michigan State at this point, as they've suffered now 6 losses in a row. Keys to Wisdom in the comment section says 10 games is the longest streak, 1916 and 1917 seasons. If we lose out, we tie it. Well, that's not a very pleasant thought for the Spartan faithful, but we do appreciate the information there. Keys to Wisdom. Who does Michigan State open with next year? Just out of curiosity, I'm going to pull that up.
Toledo, maybe. I think it's maybe Toledo. I know they go on the road to Boston College. I'm trying to think their other out of conference.
Florida Atlantic.
Oh, Florida Atlantic.
Michigan State opens with Florida Atlantic next year. So, I don't want to start off 2024 the same way the 2023 season has ended, but that's what it would take, I guess, to set a new record for consecutive losses would be to lose out this season and lose the opener with Florida. Man, can you imagine that though? Like if a new coach is hired, we figure it might take some time, but that would be a rough way to get things started off. So
yeah, it would.
Unpleasant thought. We won't spend any more time on that, but there you go, Gregory. For if you asked the question, so there's your answer. With that, back to the game at hand here. So Nebraska does seem like they have found themselves a little bit here, and I did like Matt Rule as a hire for Nebraska. That doesn't trend. Now, I will say, last home game for Michigan State, because the season finale against Penn State is now at Ford Field in Detroit. So this is going to be senior night for the Spartans. And I do think that comes with some added motivation. And I do think Michigan State will come out and play hard. And, I say Nebraska, and you said it too, Nebraska's kind of found themselves, but this still is a limited team, it's still a limited roster. So I had to add Aiden again here to the stream.
I need to check get a new router or something.
Yeah. Well, we'll work through the technical difficulties as we continue here. With that, we'll jump into Big Ten at a glance, which is when we kind of look at the best games and worst game in the Big Ten this week. Best game could have gone in a couple different directions, but the one I chose was number 11 Penn State, who is a 8.5-point favorite at Maryland. What are your thoughts on this game, Aiden? So, Penn State is coming off of, the loss to Ohio State, and then they kind of scuffled through that win over Indiana last week. Maryland, meanwhile, lost to Ohio State and has gone on to lose the next 2. So they're struggling. So what was kind of viewed as I want to say a marquee matchup, but kind of an important matchup, has kind of lost a little bit of its luster. So what are your thoughts on this game, Penn State and Maryland?
Yeah, I mean, Penn State, Indiana really gave them all they got last game. And then, Maryland, 2 back-to-back losses to Illinois and Northwestern after kind of, they gave Ohio State a really tough 3 quarters and then, lost it at the end. And then, losing those 2. I really was kind of high on Maryland. I thought, returning Talia Tungailoa, they have good pieces. Mike Loxley's done, well and improved every single year. And I thought, maybe this could be the year that they beat a Penn State potentially, or, they go down to the wire with Ohio State and Michigan and win, 9 games and potentially compete for 3rd place in the Big Ten. It feels like, without MSU being good, that it's, the 3-horse race between Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State every year now. So I think, the way that they've kind of fallen off as well, this win would definitely be huge for them and get them back on track. But also, this is kind of a statement game for Penn State to prove that they're back on track as well after kind of stumbling a little bit with Indiana.
Yeah, no, I agree. In Maryland, it does seem like October is like Maryland's worst enemy, because it seems like they come out in September every year and look pretty good. And then October rolls around and they seem to stack losses in October for whatever reason. And then by November, nobody really cares anymore. So that's kind of been Maryland's story these last couple of years. But this is not one of our place your bet games. And I'm a little bit concerned about Penn State just because of the way they've looked these last couple of weeks on offense, particularly. And so 8.5 is kind of a big number. I don't know. I might lean Maryland. We're not making picks, but I might lean Maryland on that one. As far as worst game, could have gone Purdue at Michigan this week. Michigan's a 32.5-point favorite, and a game that nobody expects to be close, and a game that won't do anything to halt the ongoing discussions around the program in Ann Arbor, regardless of what happens in this game. Unless, I guess, if Purdue pulled off an upset, I guess that would at least deflect things a little bit, but I don't expect that. But as far as worst game, I did go with Iowa, a 5-point favorite at Northwestern, and there's a very specific reason why I chose this as the worst game in the Big Ten this week, and it's because the over-under is set at 29.5, which, if I'm not mistaken, is the lowest over-under in the history of college football. So not a lot of offense, or very, very little offense expected in Evanston this week. And man, can you imagine being a fan of one of those teams and watching this game? Like, it could be a 3-0 game or something like that. I mean, that's way under on the over-under, but any thoughts on, I guess, help me decide between the two, Aiden, which is worse, the Iowa Northwestern because of its over-under, or Michigan and Purdue because it's supposed to be a blowout and nobody really cares anyway?
Yeah, well, the Northwestern, if Northwestern wins it, they're part of the tie for first place. So that does kind of have some big implications for the Big Ten West, which is it's just laughable at this point that it's come to this. But I think Michigan being 30, I think, what'd you say, 32.5-point favorite?
That's what I've got.
That's probably the worst game. But in terms of games to watch, Iowa and Northwestern might be the most unpleasing, I guess.
That's fair. That's a good way of putting it. Just throwing up some comments from the comment section here. All right, and then just other games that are going on in the Big Ten this week. Number 1, Ohio State. Yes, we're using the college football playoff rankings now. Now that those have started to come out, we'll use those instead of the Associated Press. So number 1, Ohio State is an 18.5-point favorite at Rutgers. I think I like Rutgers in that to cover, not to win, but to cover.
Yeah.
And then Wisconsin is an 8.5-point favorite at Indiana, and Illinois is at Minnesota. Minnesota's a 1.5-point favorite. Any other thoughts on the Big Ten slate this week, Aiden, before we move on?
Yeah, I think we'll get to see kind of what Rutgers is really made of. Moving forward, they're bowl eligible now, so that's big. How can they capitalize on that? Can they, pull an upset, or do they have more in the tank, or they're done at 6?
Yeah, that's a good point. They earned bowl eligibility pretty early for Rutgers standards. So,
right.
All right. With that, we'll move back to Michigan State and Nebraska and move into our over-unders segment here. And this is where we kind of place prop bets and discuss those and kind of give some predictions on that. So I'll let you go ahead and get started with the over-unders tonight, Aiden. Hit me with your first one.
All right. I don't know. Should we start with the fastball, or should we kind of ease on into it?
When I'm playing MLB The Show and I'm pitching, I always start with the fastball. So go ahead.
So I guess this is more of a yes or no question. Does Sam Leavitt start on Saturday?
I've got one of these too. I listed it as like a pick 'em, and it's who starts, Kate Hauser or Sam Leavitt. So I'll go ahead and start the discussion. I think it's going to be Kate Hauser. I do. I don't know necessarily that that's the decision I would make. If Sam was willing to burn his red shirt, I think I would go ahead and start him this week and really burn the red shirt and let him start the rest of the way. Just because I think with his legs, he can add to the vanilla play calling of Jay Johnson. And I think part of that, we talked about this in the last show, but I think part of the vanilla play calling is due to the fact that it's 2 young quarterbacks right now. But I just think that the added factor of Sam's legs helps the offense because he can kind of create. With that said, like that's the reason why I would go to him. I don't know that that's the decision that the coaching staff will make, and they've probably. I mean, sure, they're closer to the situation, so I would trust them to make a more informed decision than you or I. But gut tells me I think it's going to be Kaden Hauser starting this week, and that's where I'm at on that. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I think a lot of people would like to see Sam Leavitt get the start, but then you have the red shirt kind of, situation there. So it's probably a more personal decision for him, because obviously the coaching staff, they're kind of in limbo right now in terms of what the future is going to be. So I'd probably go Hauser as well. But if Sam Leavitt is willing to play any more football the rest of this season and burn his red shirt, there's no doubt in my mind, I think he would get at least one start at some point the rest of this season.
Right. I think he can play in one more game and maintain the red shirt. 2 more appearances would burn it. So that's kind of what the factor is there. So remind me what you said. Who do you think will start?
I'll say Kaden Hauser for now.
Okay. All right. So we're on the same page there. We both think Hauser will be the guy starting. Just a little bit of, I don't know if we did this last show or not, but a little bit of an update on Noah Kim. He was listed as out on the last availability report, and it sounds like it's going to be a couple of weeks before he's good to go again, based on what Harlan Barnett said this week. So that kind of factors in a little bit here as well, because after Kim, Hauser, and Leavitt, the fourth option is a walk-on, and that's Andrew. I don't even know how to pronounce his last name. It's Shorehar or something like that. It's something. He's a walk-on. I'll just say he's a walk-on. So it's a little bit thin. If you're worried about Sam's red shirt, they might not have a choice. I mean, God forbid something happened to Kaden Hauser or something like that. Like he takes a big hit or something like that. But you might not have a choice unless he has specifically said, no, I don't want to burn my red shirt. And then you would you'd go with a walk-on at that point. But interesting discussion for sure. We're both on the same page with Hauser. With that, that kind of leads me into my next over under, and that is Caden Hauser over under 149 and a half passing yards. So that would be a career high. It's not a huge number, but and for reference, I have Nebraska's kind of team stats here. They're allowing 219.8 yards through the air on average. So still well below Nebraska's season average, but we haven't seen Caden. I think 133 might be the most he's thrown for so far this year. So where are you at with that?
Yeah, I'm probably going to take the under on that. I think MSU has just struggled to, find guys in the air. I think they've struggled to find a receiver that can, separate himself from the rest of the group and kind of establish dominance in that receiver room. I think, some of the most valuable receivers, I guess the most valuable receiver for MSU lately has seemed to be kind of, like Nathan Carter or, and then it was, Malik Carr at one point. And then, he was out last game for an unnamed reason. And then, again, that receiver room is really just kind of juggling right now. And we hoped early in the season that was a good thing, but now it has turned into kind of, it's now a bad thing because no one's really separated themselves, and the sophomores kind of still feel like younger kind of underclassmen guys, and then the older guys haven't really stepped up the way you would expect them to.
Right. Yeah, for sure. I think we've had an over under like this one the last couple of weeks, and I've chosen over both times, and I've been wrong. So I'm gonna join you this week. I'm gonna take the under too. It's just we haven't seen it yet. We don't know if it doesn't sound like Trey Mosley is going to be available this week. That's not official, but just the way Harlan Barnett talked about it this week, it doesn't sound like Mosley will play on Saturday. Hope I'm wrong on that. And a similar thing with Carr. I mean, they're talking about broken fingernails or something in the comments section with Malik Carr. I know like he doesn't have the best reputation amongst Michigan State's fan base at this time, which part of that I think is valid. Part of it I think you can blame on not specifically Aiden and I, but people like us who have kind of hyped up Malik going into the seasons, each of the last couple of seasons. So it's unfortunate, but he just hasn't lived up to some of those expectations. And I do think like even Ted Gilmore, the tight ends coach at the beginning of the year, had said that Malik was a little bit heavier than he would have preferred. I think he was like in the 260 range, and they would have liked him to be down in like the 245 and 250 range there. So it does seem like there's a little bit of a motivation issue maybe with Malik. Yeah, just an unfortunate situation. Hasn't lived up to what we expected on the year. So on that plays into the point because I just don't know who's going to be that guy who steps up. Now, the one thing about 159 and a half is that it only takes a couple of those deep shots to connect in order, and then you're right there. We've seen that a little bit with Montori Foster, Christian Fitzpatrick, Jerron Glover. So it doesn't take much to beat 159, and frankly, just as somebody who's going to be watching the game, I would like the over to hit because that would mean a more excitement and more offense in this game. But for now, I'm with you, Aid. I'm going to go under. All right, hit me with your next over under.
All right, so my next over under is MSU over under forcing 1.5 turnovers.
Nebraska's been prone to giveaways on the year. I don't think Sims was their quarterback to start the year, wasn't he?
He was to start the year, and now it's his name's Heinrich Harburg, I think.
Okay,
is how you say it.
Yeah, frankly, I haven't played a whole lot of attention to Nebraska after some of those early games. So 1.5. That's a tough one to reach. They did have 3 turnovers last week against Minnesota, 2 fumbles and an interception. I'll swing big here. I'll go over. I do think it's going to be kind of one of those sloppier games. The weather, who knows what the weather is going to be like? We got our first snow in the state of Michigan the last couple of days here, so weather could be a factor. I'll go ahead and go over on that and take Michigan State to get at least a couple turnovers.
Yeah, I'm going to go over too. I think that's been the one consistent thing about MSU, or one kind of positive takeaway that they've had when, they're not playing Michigan or Washington, is that they have been able to force turnovers. And against Minnesota, you start the first 2 drives, you get fumbles, and then they had a interception later in the game against Rutgers, against against Iowa again. Like they've forced turnovers. They've done well with that. I think, like you said, that Nebraska is kind of a little bit turnover prone. I know his touchdown to interception ratio is 7-4 right now, so I'm going to take the over on that too.
Okay, so we're on the same page there. We'll stick with the pass game for Nebraska. I'm going to switch it a little bit here. So Nebraska's passing attack has been pretty pedestrian at best, I guess you could say. They're averaging 132.3 passing yards per game, which is sounds awful. And it's 130th out of 133. So one of the worst passing offenses in the country. Of course, we know that Michigan State has struggled at times defending the pass, particularly the intermediate passing game with the linebackers. So I'm going to set the over under for Nebraska passing yards at 159.5. I misspoke earlier. The over under for Caden Hauser was 149.5. This is 159.5 for Nebraska.
I'm going to take the over on that. I think again, kind of same deal, different week. Just that MSU, finding that kind of second or third linebacker for them, because obviously Cal Holiday has kind of had a rough go this year. And, in coverage, I think a lot of teams like to pick on him, and they find him and really just exploit their defense, because, all else, MSU, a lot of the young guys are playing really well. I know we've talked about Chance Rucker and kind of the sophomores doing well, but I think the over is going to hit on this.
Okay. Man, 132.3 is pretty low. I'll take over as well, but I'm expecting maybe less than 175. I think this is going to be fairly close. I'll take the over just because Michigan State's linebackers do seem to struggle in coverage, and that's kind of been a recurring theme. So, and for a lot of the same reasons that we talked about with Caden Hauser, it doesn't take too many big completions in order to get these numbers to stack up a little bit. So I'm with you on that. I'll take the over for Nebraska. All right, go ahead and hit me with another one.
All right, this one's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of sad to say this, but I'm gonna go Nathan Carter rushing yards over under 50.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, I'll preface this with Nebraska's rushing defense is one of the best in the country, and are averaging, I think, when I checked before the podcast, was 79 yards per game. They've done really well up front, and I think that's where they've really kind of gone right this season, more so than kind of the old past Scott Frost team. So I'll set it at 50, which
no, this plays into my next over under. It's different, so we'll go ahead and do it. But I'm with you. I looked up the numbers too, and yes, Nebraska's 6th best in the country in rush defense right now. So for Carter, 50. I'm gonna go under. And I feel bad about that, saying that, because I like him, and I think he's a good player, but with as good as Nebraska has been, and frankly, as much of a struggle as it's been for Michigan State to run the football, 50 does not seem like a lot, but I'll go under.
Yeah. I think if it was all-purpose yards, because like I said about the passing, I think, for Levitt and Hauser to, hit him in checkdowns, and they kind of showed some screen plays that didn't really work very well against Minnesota, but still getting him in the passing game. I probably would have taken the over for all-purpose yards, but I'm probably going to take the under as well for 50 rushing yards. I think the offensive line is really going to have their hands full, and that's just going to be a constant problem, because I don't think Nebraska is really going to blitz a ton because they are that sound in the rushing defense. And then MSU has really struggled passing as well, so I don't think I don't think it makes a difference, so I'm going to take the under.
All right, so we're in agreement there. Again, this plays into my next one, and that's Michigan State total rushing yards as a team over under 89.5.
Total rushing yards at 89.5.
I think what makes this one interesting is that if we see Sam leave it, I feel much better about the over hitting, but we don't know. So
I think Caden Hauser isn't that bad of a runner too. Like, in all honesty, I don't think any of the three of them were. And I remember we were talking about that in, the press box at the Michigan game, about kind of when MSU's offense has been at its best. It's when, the quarterback is a threat to run the ball, and, kind of the RPO, or just even, the quarterback read options. And we haven't seemed to see that. So I think I'm going to take the under on that as well. I mean, Nebraska, I think just their whole rushing defense, it's going to be tough. So I'm going to take the under again.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things about I think Caden Hauser is capable in the run game as well, but I think Jay Johnson only called like one or two designed runs for him the whole game against Minnesota before he got pulled. So that's a factor here as well. If I knew Sam Leavitt was starting, I would probably take the over on this. But I don't know that, and I don't know that he'll play. So I'll take the under as well on 89.5 rushing yards for Michigan State, which would be frankly a pathetic performance again from the rush attack. So but we're in agreement there. All right, Aiden, you have one or two more?
Two more.
Okay, so hit me with your next one. I've got one more.
I'm gonna go MSU touchdowns, 1.5. Sorry, I only have one more. Sorry, this is my last one. So over under 1.5 touchdowns.
Oh man, this plays into my my final score a little bit here, but I threw out a final score without really thinking about the touchdown to field goal ratio, but I'll go over. I'll go over 1.5 touchdowns, which sounds like a bold take because they scored one against Minnesota. It was on a drive that was led by Sam Leavitt. They were shut out by Michigan, and offense has been really hard to come by. So 2 touchdowns in a game, it sounds like a lot, but I'll take the over.
Yeah, I'm not as optimistic as you are. I'm going to take the under on that. And I have it at 1 touchdown. So,
okay. Keys to Wisdom is with you. Carrie Ellis is with me. So we're a little bit split there. We agreed on most of the over-unders. So that's interesting that one we're different on. All right, my last one. Jordan Hall's looked really good. We've talked about that. We've had to find bright spots to talk about when it comes to football, and Jordan Hall always comes up when we talk about this. He had 2 sacks last week against Minnesota, forced a fumble. So I got the over/under for Jordan Hall sacks at 0.5. So pretty much, does he get a sack again this week or not?
I will say yes. I do think he gets a sack. I think MSU is going to throw as much pressure as they can, and just try to stop their run game and their passing game, and throw some blitzes. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you too. We got to have at least one positive here. So we're going to go over half a sack for Jordan Hall. He's probably going to combine on one now with somebody else, and he's going to end up with 0.5 just to spite me. But no, we're going to go over on Jordan Hall sacks, and Kerry Ellis is with us on that. So, all right. With that, we'll move into place your bets. This is where we look at some of the best games around the country this week. And I do have updated standings for us, Aiden. We both had a good week last week. We went 4-2 each last week. And so I've moved back to 500. I'm at 22 correct, 22 incorrect, and 1 push. And you're at 21, 23, and 1. So you're still 1 back of me, but we both had good weeks last week. So let's try to keep that positive momentum going. We'll start things off with number 15, Notre Dame, a 3-point favorite at Clemson.
Yeah. I mean, Clemson has really kind of been derailed, and the talent is still there. I will say that. I think the talent is still there. I know Dabo Sweeney went on a radio show earlier this weekend, kind of went on a tangent, which I agree with. I think
I agree too.
The heights that he took Clemson to, I think people have gotten a little bit greedy with that. And, it's totally understandable that, he's frustrated. And again, like you think about that where, we talk about the losing with Michigan State, and, the people who are most frustrated with MSU losing are the players and the coaches. So, same deal everywhere you go. So I'm still, I say that, but I'm gonna go Notre Dame to cover the -3 on that.
Yeah, this feels a little bit like a sucker bet from Vegas, because you would think Notre Dame, even on the road, would be favored by more than 3.
Right.
Given the struggles that you kind of laid out with Clemson there. But Clemson still does play pretty good defense. Like that's the one thing that hasn't really left that program. I don't know that they're playing at the same level that they were like under Brent Venables when he was the defensive coordinator there, but they're still pretty solid. And Notre Dame's offense has struggled at times too. So this feels like a little bit of a sucker bet, but I'll go ahead and stick with Notre Dame on this one. Even though I sense something fishy going on here, but I'll take Notre Dame to cover the 3. We're in agreement there. All right, moving on to our next game. Number 23, Kansas State is at number 7, Texas. Texas is only a 4-point favorite in this one. Kansas State's kind of surged over these last couple of weeks with a new starting quarterback. So Longhorns maybe a little bit on an upset alert here. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna take the upset. I think Kansas State will cover on that and potentially win out. Quinn Ewers is still kind of battling an injury too, so if we get their backup, Texas backup, Malik Murphy, he played well last week. But again, I still think, like you said, Kansas State is kind of surging and kind of back on track from where they were earlier. Chris Kleiman, I know he's denied Michigan State, and I know we're almost done signing Urban Meyer, but if that Urban Meyer deal falls through, I think Chris Kleiman is a guy worth calling. So I'm going to go Kansas State to cover the 4.
I'm with you on this one. I'm a little concerned about Texas here. I don't know. Like we don't pick outright winners when we usually do, but like we're picking against the spread. But I wouldn't be surprised if Kansas State wins this one outright. Texas does seem to have, like, the loss to Oklahoma is just 2 pretty good teams going head-to-head rivalry game. But Texas does seem to like slip up in one of these types of games every year. So yeah, I'm going to take Kansas State as well to cover the 4 points on this one. So we're in agreement. Speaking of the other half of the Red River rivalry, number 9 Oklahoma is a 5.5-point favorite in Bedlam against number 22 Oklahoma State. This is the last Bedlam game scheduled as of now, which is a travesty, and I hate that. If there's one thing I hate about college football right now is its conference realignment and the loss of historic rivalries. And Bedlam, just, I mean, cool name for one thing. And one of the more entertaining games, usually a shootout type of thing. So who do you like? Oklahoma, 5.5-point favorite at Oklahoma State.
Yeah, I think Oklahoma State is going to be really fired up because they're kind of the ones being left out in this, obviously, because Texas and Oklahoma are the two moving to the SEC. So I think Oklahoma State's going to have, a crazy crowd. They're still, I think they're 6-2 or 7-2. They're in the top 25. So I think that's big for them. But I think I think Oklahoma covers the 5.5 on this. But I would not be surprised at all if Oklahoma State comes in there and pulls the upset.
Yeah, once again, we're on the same page. I'm leery of Oklahoma State, but they never seem to win Bedlam. As exciting as a lot of these games have been, it's very one-sided in Oklahoma's favor. And Oklahoma did get that, I don't want to say wake-up call, because 2 weeks ago, UCF almost upset Oklahoma. That wasn't enough to wake up Oklahoma per se, but I think Kansas has become at least a very solid team who you can't take lightly. So I picked Kansas to cover last week. So, but with that said, I do think Oklahoma is going to have some renewed focus this week in the rivalry game. I'm going to take the Sooners to win it as well and cover the 5.5. So I think we've both picked the same side so far. This is an interesting one. We talked about Iowa and Northwestern earlier with the over-under being 29.5. This game is like the exact opposite. It's number 5 Washington at number 20 USC, where all offense is what it's expected. Very little defense for both sides, particularly on the Trojan side. But Washington's only a 3-point favorite at USC this week. Who do you like?
Yeah, I feel like that's another kind of sucker line after watching USC really just struggle defensively. And I still think Washington isn't the greatest defensive team, but you can tell they have a lot more talent. So I'm going to go Washington to cover the -3. Yeah, I'm sure you do too.
Yep, I'm with you. I think Washington is going to score at will in this game against the Trojans. 76.5 is the over-under for this one. And I think I would, if I was a betting man, I think I'd take the over on 76.5. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was about to say, I also think Washington is going to be a little bit more fired up because the college football playoff rankings came out and they were the 5th ranked team and they were the last undefeated team, but by their rankings have the best win over number 6 Oregon. And, obviously Ohio State was ranked number 1, and it seems to be, the reasoning behind that seems to be because of their win at Notre Dame and their win against, Penn State. And they value those 2 wins, but it seems that the committee didn't really value Washington's win over Oregon.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. We might have lost the Facebook stream here, so hopefully that's not the case. But we lost our Facebook stream. So Keys to Wisdom is the only person left on the stream right now. I don't know how to fix that in the middle of the show. This has never happened before where we've lost Facebook. So hopefully, I know Carrie Alice follows us on YouTube. Hopefully that will he'll join us, but for now it's just you, Keys of Wisdom, in the comments section. So we'll continue. Number 12 Missouri is at number 2 Georgia. Georgia is a 15.5-point favorite. Missouri 7-1. They've been one of those surprises this season. And Georgia does seem to play its best, though, when they play an opponent who at least looks threatening to them. So who do you like in this one? Georgia 15.5 is the line.
Yeah. I don't know. That's tough. I think I'm going to pick Georgia to cover. I really like their offense. I think that they have an underrated offense. I think their defense is not as good as the last couple of years, but I still like them to cover that 15.5.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that too. Until Georgia actually does get threatened by one of these teams, I will continue to pick them to cover these spreads. Um, it does seem like a lot, and I do think Missouri is a pretty solid team, but Georgia is the top dog until proven otherwise, despite the fact that they're number 2 this week. In fact, that might even bleed into it some more. The fact that the committee placed Georgia at number 2 instead of number 1. Kirby Smart is good about utilizing those types of things. So yeah, I like Georgia this week. With that, we'll move into our what I consider to be the game of the week, and that's number 14 LSU at number 8 Alabama. Alabama is a 3-point favorite in this one, a tight battle in the SEC West. Very, very conflicting styles here for play. LSU very much more offensive oriented. Alabama leans on its defense to win games. How do you see that matchup playing out?
Yeah, I think, like you said, the offense of LSU seems it's really good. It's almost unstoppable. And, Alabama's defense seems to be like of old and really dominant. So I think it's really conflicting. I think Alabama being at home gives them the edge, right? Like 3-point, the kind of having a home game gives you 3 points at home. So I'll pick Alabama to cover that 3 for that reason.
Yeah, this is a tough one for me because I'm back and forth on it. Yeah, this is tough. I think I'm with you though. I think I'll until proven otherwise, kind of similar to Georgia. LSU's secondary is not good, and we've seen Jalen Milroe is not a consistent quarterback for Alabama, but he does seem to be pretty proficient at the deep ball, and they've had a receiver who's emerged over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, Malik Neighbors.
Yeah, so I like that. I just think Alabama. I trust them more, I guess, is what I'm trying to say here. And so I'll go ahead and stick with Alabama to cover the 3 points. With that, Aiden, we'll move back to Michigan State and Nebraska and kind of wrap things up with our predictions for that game. I'll let you lead it off here. What do you expect to see in this game? And ultimately, who do you like coming on top?
Yeah, I mean, it's senior day, which kind of feels weird that, it's senior day the first week in November. So, but for, I think MSU will come out motivated in that sense. But, I think it's going to be the same tune where, Nebraska wins. They kind of take control early. I had MSU getting over 1.5 turnovers. I have them getting multiple turnovers. I think Nebraska is exposable in a way, but I don't think that's going to be enough for MSU. I think, Nebraska has really just kind of come together and figured it out just this season. So I have Nebraska winning 34-13, and I don't have MSU. Like I said earlier, they don't score 2 touchdowns. And yeah, I think it's just going to be kind of the struggle bus kind of goes down the road another week for MSU.
So you've got Nebraska big in this one.
Yeah, I think, Nebraska is a better team than Minnesota, in my opinion, better than Iowa. I think they're better than Rutgers. So yeah, I think this is a tough game, and they're a tough team the way they've played the last kind of 4 or 5 weeks.
All right. I also have Nebraska covering the spread in this one. So I've got Nebraska 23, Michigan State 17. So closer. I think it's going to be similar to some of those, low scoring defensive battles that we've seen, going back to last week, Minnesota, going back to the Iowa game a few weeks ago. And again, until we see Michigan State make the corrections necessary to come out on top in one of these games, I'm going to continue to pick against them, unfortunately. So we're on the same page there. Keys to wisdom, also likes Nebraska 24-10 is his prediction in that one. So yeah, with that, not the most optimistic of shows. I thought about getting into a little bit of basketball just because we kind of got through our show kind of quickly tonight. But with the Facebook issues that we're having right now, I think we'll go ahead and shut it down right here. Very limited audience at the time. A little bit of offense like Michigan State, a little bit of audience for us. Yeah, unfortunately, we'll go ahead and shut it down right here. Appreciate you guys tuning in, and hopefully we'll get some of these issues resolved as far as Facebook and next time we go live. But we're going to call it a night here. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.